John in New York City watching us on Manhattan Neighborhood Network cable TV. Hey, John, what's up?
Hey, John, how you doing?
Good.
I'm Tom. Sorry. A few quick things. I know you have a lot of callers. At the core, we have a problem in America and the world. We have something called money, fiat currency, that we don't have control over. So as many discussions as, we may have, as long as someone else is controlling the money, our problems still exist with the Federal Reserve and with the concept. And I wanted to mention regarding nationalism, the danger with it is that when we go out and acquire resources in hostile ways with someone in a poorer region, they're poor, but yet their resources are here. Once we talk about Wall Street and the empowerment of how do we fix Wall Street, we forget the concept that Wall Street, to me, is basically a clearinghouse for many resources that are taken from around the world. So at our core, we have to look at money, but also we have to readdress our system itself. Otherwise, we continue trying to ask politicians to sign legislation when they don't have a contract that they sign to promise us that they're going to do what they say.
Right.
Do you understand what I mean? At the core,
I do, and let me address both of your points. I would say that the second thing that you raised was a fairly reasonable layman's description of what is traditionally called imperialism. And, the imperial state reaches out and seizes control, whether it's political or economic or both, of other states or military, and does that simply to strip them of their natural resources or even their human resources. And it's not sustainable. Imperialism is not sustainable. Eventually, the dominated states will either run out of resources or they will fight back. I mean, it's what we did to the United Kingdom in 1776. So it's an unsustainable form of governance, of political organizational structure, national organizational structure. I agree with you. On the first point, we do have fiat currency, and which means that the government creates the money out of thin air and it defines the value of the money. And you are absolutely correct that it's not our government which is defining the value of our currency. It is the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve is a quasi-private public institution, but it's mostly private. It's not a for-profit corporation, but it is a corporation which is owned by for-profit corporations, the 12 Federal Reserve banks, and they in turn are owned by smaller Federal Reserve associated banks all over the United States. And I would say that having a fiat currency in and of itself is actually a good thing for a nation. It allows a nation to vary its money supply and the value of its money relative to the value of its wealth. You go through something like the Industrial Revolution or the Computer Revolution, or you discover some major new natural resource, and suddenly the country gets much, much wealthier very, very quickly. If the money supply doesn't expand to reflect that, you end up with a deflation. You end up with a crash as a consequence of that growth. And that's the problem with the gold standard, is that all of a sudden you've got to get a lot more gold. And it's why the United States was stockpiling gold like crazy in the last part of the 19th and early part of the 20th century. And we would only accept payment from other countries in gold, which just killed our ability to engage in international trade and really hurt the United States. I mean, going off the gold standard was a good thing. The bad part about it, as you correctly identify, is that it is this private corporation, the Federal Reserve, that is determining. There's two bad parts about it. A, they're the ones who are determining the value of the currency and our monetary policy. They were created by Congress with two dictates, two purposes. One, to control inflation, the other to keep unemployment low. And they've done a very good job of controlling inflation. They've done an absolutely abysmal job of keeping unemployment low. And that's what people like Robert Reich and Paul Krugman are pointing out, that the Fed has failed in its job since Alan Greenspan was made chairman of the Fed by Ronald Reagan back in the day. That's been the problem with the Fed, and one problem with the Fed. And then the second problem, of course, is that they loan money to us at interest, and so our government is continually in debt to the Fed. The Fed makes a profit on creating our money for us, and that profit then flows to the Federal Reserve banking system, to the banks, and they loan money to the banks. Not necessarily at a profit. Sometimes, right now, it's pretty much not at a profit. It's at a much lower rate than they loan money to the federal government. They're loaning money to our federal government 1% and change. The underlying T-rate bill. T-bill rate, and we have to buy our treasuries through the banks by law rather than buying them directly from the Fed, which is another insane provision. And then on top of that, they're loaning money to the banks, and not just to U.S. banks, but to like Deutsche Bank. I mean, they're loaning them money at 1%, 0.2% interest, while they're loaning it to the federal government at 1% and change. It is wrong. It makes no sense, and it doesn't work. Well, it does work for the banksters. It doesn't work for the average person. You're absolutely right.